Hello and welcome to episode 25 of the Watch It Bro podcast. I am Tristan.
Is it 25 already?
It is.
I had to say it. And this is
Yeah.
Mark.
And unfortunately, today we're going to be talking about Black Sheep.
Not going to bury the lead on that one?
No, this sucks.
We're sorry.
I apologize. I am genuinely sorry that I picked this for my last movie of the season. I'm going to try to salvage it with this podcast, but there ain't much to salvage here.
You want to do the specs? You want to talk about the movie a little bit first? Because I've got
Oh,
some fun facts.
I got some fun facts too. We'll get into them as they come up.
Okay.
But we'll start out the Black Sheep.
And not so fun facts. Sorry.
And not so fun facts. Yeah. I did not write down when this movie was released.
1986. 1996. I have it right here.
Okay.
I said that, but I didn't.
February 2nd, 1996.
That is a horrible. February is generally a horrible month for movies to release.
Groundhog Day.
I mean, I didn't say bad movies. It's just a bad time for movies to release. They don't do well in the box office in February.
This was a box office success.
No.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Fun fact.
Wow.
Yeah. Now
they were riding high on the Tommy Boy of it.
Yes, they were. Which is why when we did Tommy Boy at the very beginning, I mentioned Black Sheep being basically a riding on the coattails of it. I also might have made it seem like a better movie than it is when I talked about it.
You did speak of it fondly.
In retrospect, actually not even in retrospect, I genuinely regret picking this as my last movie of the podcast of season 1 of this podcast.
So it's not just Tommy Boy with Gary Busey.
No. I mean, it is though. It's like it's a genuine ripoff of the whole buddy road trip kind of thing. With Gary Busey. It's just, I don't know. It's bad.
There's a few of the same beats which we'll touch on as we get to them in the movie.
Yeah.
But fun fact, this movie was written over a weekend.
Yes, it was. The guy almost got sued and turned it in 15 minutes. Fred Wolf wrote this movie.
Yeah. Do you want to do the specs and kind of touch on the movie as why we have this movie? Let's do the specs first, and then we'll get into the making of it.
Okay. So it was directed by Penelope Spheris, who directed Wayne's World, Beverly Hillbillies, and Little Rascals. So it's not her fault.
No, it's not her fault. I can honestly say I enjoy those 3 movies.
Yeah. It was written by Fred Wolf, who wrote Tommy Boy, Joe Dirt's 1 and 2, Dickie Roberts, and Grown Ups 1 and 2. So not really his fault either. It's probably his fault.
He wrote it. He's the one that wrote it in a weekend.
He wrote it. It's his fault. And this is another Lorne Michaels production, so it's his fault too.
Yeah, and it was the reason they were up on the deadline is because Farley was contracted for 2 movies with Paramount. And
right, and
they were getting he had done Tommy Boy, and then they were chomping at the bit to get this one going. And
because
I was gonna say if they didn't get the script in, he would have been out of his contract and not have to do that.
Right, he wouldn't have had to do another one, and he was the cable guy.
Yes, he was auditioning for the cable guy, which would have been a very different movie if Chris Farley was in it versus I don't know what to call it that Jim Carrey. I mean, Jim Carrey did the role, but it would have been a whole lot more lighthearted, and I think he would have felt more like John Candy in Planes, Trains, and Automobiles as the lovable guy who's just always there, as opposed to this creepy psycho that Jim Carrey played.
Yeah. I've never seen the cable guy, so I have no idea what you're talking about. But I could see Jim Carrey being a guy that's always there. I remember the movie cover, so that's creepy. And then I can see the character. I can see what Chris Farley would have brought to the cable guy.
Yeah, and I mentioned Planes, Trains, and Automobiles because it's that guy he's introduced into it was
Neil.
Matthew Broderick, or in Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, Neil, introduced into his life. He just kept showing up. He was there, and Matthew Broderick was in Cable Guy.
Oh,
No,
okay.
Matthew Broderick.
I'm
I'm we're
I'm
shoving.
like, Steve Martin was in Transplants and Automobiles, not Matthew Broderick.
No,
What are
I'm
you
sorry.
doing?
We're we're shoving 2 movies together and talking about them both at the same time,
We were
but it
supposed to be talking about Black Sheep, but that's
this
no good, so we're talking about better movies.
I was gonna say it's a testament to Black Sheep. But yeah, Farley was trying to get Cable Guy, and Paramount's like, "We got the script. We're making your movie." And you can feel he's forced to make this movie when you're watching it. Like there's something off about him, and there's times you're like, "Yeah, he's just going through the motions."
I didn't get that at all.
Oh, I did in some scene. It wasn't like the whole thing where he's just phoning it in, but there's like, yeah, you can see he's not. It doesn't feel like he's giving it his all on that one.
Well, he was sober throughout all of it,
Yes. Yes, he was.
so that might have had something to do with it. It's
Man,
starring Chris Farley.
I
Going
was gonna
back
say,
to the
do we have any more specs? How far do we get into this?
we got up to who's starring in the movie, and
Oh, okay.
yes, it's another like Tommy Boy. This is a Chris Farley David Spade duo. It's
Yep.
also starring Tim Matheson, who was Otter in Animal House.
Yes. And do you have a fun fact about this?
This role was he plays Al Donnelly, Mike's brother, and the guy who's running for governor. And the role was originally offered to the lovable Kevin Bacon, who turned it down and now states that he regrets turning it down because he missed his opportunity to work with Chris Farley.
Yes. They knew Farley was a huge fan of Belushi, and they wanted to get people from Animal House in the movie. That's why D-Day's in it as well.
Right. And Tim Matheson, also, you might recognize him as the voice of Johnny Quest
Interesting. The original Johnny Quest or the new one? The
from the 1960s.
original Johnny Quest. Awesome.
Original Johnny Quest, yes.
Race Bannon. Johnny Quest.
Great show. We used to watch that all the time on Cartoon Network back when they actually showed good cartoons.
Yeah, and the remake of it wasn't too bad either, where they were starting to get they updated it with the time, so they would go into Quest World, which was like a 3D computer world because times changed, computers are a thing.
Yeah, that was actually pretty cool. I remember watching a little bit of that. Moving on, we have Christine Ebersole, who was in Mac and Me.
I feel like that's got to be a special feature.
Mac and Me.
Yeah.
So, fun fact about Mac and Me is every time Paul Rudd appeared on the Conan O'Brien show to promote his movie, he would play the same clip of Mac and Me.
The kid in the wheelchair rolling down a hill.
Yes, and every single time for decades. So that's why I mentioned it, because I thought we'd get a laugh out of that too, because anything's better than Black Sheep. She was also the mom in Richie Rich, starring
Okay.
Macaulay Culkin.
Her hair was huge in this movie.
Her hair was horrible in this movie. Moving on again.
Yes.
Rounding out our starring cast according to the Wikipedia, we have the great Gary Busey.
The great and lovable Gary Busey,
Yes, who
who I
was
feel isn't acting too much.
no, who was also played Buddy Holly in the Buddy Holly story. He was the main bad guy in Lethal Weapon, and he played the lovable pitcher Chet in Rookie of the Year. I picked those three movies because those are the only other three movies that I like him in.
That's fair.
Well, I don't know. I always kind of enjoy Gary Busey.
Yeah.
In it's in a different way than being like, "Yay, it's Gary Busey." It's more like, "Ha ha ha, ha it's Gary
Gary
Busey.
Busey.
What's this gonna be?" Fun fact,
Yes.
not about Gary Busey, but about Black Sheep.
Oh.
This was one of only 3 films that Siskel ever walked out on, of Siskel and Ebert.
That is a fun fact. What are the other 2?
I didn't get those 2.
Well, fortunately,
You did?
I have them right here. So the other 2 movies Gene Siskel walked out of were The $1 Million Duck and Maniac.
He clearly never saw Star Wars Episode 9.
He did not live that long. No.
Not so fun fact, Chris Farley hated this movie. Hated this movie so bad that he actually threw away a year and a half of sobriety on it after watching at the screening.
Yeah. It's
Oh, we got dark real quick.
I don't know how to bounce back from that.
Yeah.
But it wasn't it's we're sorry. Anybody who watched this before listening to this podcast.
Yeah, no. It might be one of those ones that you got to sit through once.
Really?
It's not my least favorite movie on this podcast.
Really?
Yeah.
Is it your least favorite of your choices?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. I'm trying to think. Airheads, right?
Oh, yeah. Airheads was worse.
Oh, I don't think so.
Oh, yeah.
Write in and tell us what you think, because somebody needs to.
Or just tell us the next time you see us, Mom and Dad.
Yeah, that works too. Or Jeff, not knocking you either.
Yeah, Jeff, you could tell us too. I already know
Jesse,
what my wife thinks.
Jesse, I know you listen.
Don't call out everybody.
I think I'm done.
I think you pretty much named all of our listeners. Hey, at least it's gonna be like, I like that movie.
Oh, she does, doesn't she?
I think she does.
Oh, at least she did. I got a bunch of her movies.
Did you?
Yeah.
Didn't give any to me.
She's like, I have a bunch of movies. Do you want them? And I said yes, because I like VHS.
Yeah, if you watched Black Sheep, then you pretty much know why we're anything but Black Sheep.
Yeah, this is the longest we've taken to get into a movie. All right.
What did you bring anything back? What did you get up and do?
I was looking to see if I actually had Black Sheep over there, but the movies are further away than I thought, so I couldn't reach them.
You're gonna
Oh, do
take
you want me
your
to?
headset
Do
off.
you want me to check? Hang on. I could take my headset off,
That would work.
but then I couldn't talk to you as much. Not really like I
We're
said
we're
anything though.
we're actually recording the podcast now and talking about this instead of the movie.
Huh? That is that is definitely something we're doing.
Yep.
Oh, nope, it's not here.
That was very
Tommy Boy is.
anticlimactic. Tommy Boy's a
It was.
fantastic film.
Now having to have watched Black Sheep again in so many years, I can say yes, Tommy Boy is a fantastic film. Do we have anything else to touch on before we continue with this movie?
I kind of want to just do a do-over.
Please stick with us. We'll make the podcast fun.
Yeah, let's get into it so we can talk about some of its redeeming qualities, if any.
I can think of a couple.
So we get into the intro credits, and it's just a black screen with your title credit, intro credits, and you got campaign music over the top of it. I was waiting for you to say yes or something. I don't know why.
Because I realized I say yes a lot on this podcast. Yup. Yes. Yeah, that's it.
You usually confirm things when I say them.
I'll have to think of some more confirmation noises, but yeah, they play some campaign music. They never say what party each of the candidates are.
Yeah, which makes sense.
Yeah,
because
they didn't want to make
you don't
one
you
the
don't want
good guy and one the bad guy for a movie.
right. You don't want to have that polarizing political stances in that.
Right.
I don't know why that's funny. we, we both drank tea at the same time. Or are you having coffee?
I'm having eggnog.
Oh, I want eggnog. Eggnog is so good. Let's take a break from Black Sheep and talk about eggnog.
Man, this is what happens when neither one of us really care for the movie. At least with Airheads, I'm like, this is awesome. Let's keep going.
Well, you picked the movie and you liked the movie. Picked the movie based on my opinion of it as a stupid teenager.
Because you hadn't seen it in 25 years.
I saw it once with Rachel, didn't remember it, and then now I'm looking at it through someone who is active in his church and is very much into his faith now and a completely different person than I was even 5 years ago. So it's kind of like, oh, yeah, that kind of stuff isn't funny to me anymore.
Yeah. I did laugh more than I thought I was going to going into this.
What, once?
There, a few times.
Yep, and then it reveals that we are in fact at the campaign speech for Al Donnelly, who is going against the incumbent as governor of Washington State. We cut from there to Mike driving, who is
Donald.
played by Chris Farley, who
Yes.
is Al's brother, and he is in this horrible looking van that he looked like he built himself in his backyard with a giant cutout of his brother's head, and dogs are chasing him as he's yelling campaign stuff over the loudspeaker driving down the road in Buckley, Washington. He's supposed to be.
Yeah, yeah. And they never touch on why the dogs are chasing him.
No,
It's not like his lunch was in the back or he had just done something. It was dogs are chasing him for whatever reason. Not to harken back on this, but you can tell this was written in a weekend, and there's a lot of plot threads that don't either pan out or aren't necessary, and
most,
it feels like it's trying to do too many things at once.
yeah. So we cut
Bunch
back
of
to,
a bunch of quote unquote funny bits tied together with a loose plot.
yeah, like Billy Madison, except done badly.
Kudos to Billy Madison,
Billy
which also
Madison,
had which had Chris Farley in it as a bus
right,
driver.
right. Well, and Billy Madison is not a great movie by any stretch of the imagination, but it's a fun sequence of bits. Some
Yes,
land,
yes,
some
it
don't.
is.
Anyway, so we're going back and forth between Al giving his speech and Mike driving. At some point, when Mike's getting away from the dogs, what does he scrape?
Oh, there's a ladder hanging out off of another construction vehicle.
Right, he hits the ladder, and then it swings the head of his brother around in circles while he's driving down the road.
Yeah,
Uh,
this van has a big old picture of his brother Al's face on it, and it's like only attached at his chin.
yeah, so we have this spinning, yeah, driving down the road, and it, he ends up hitting 6 parking meters, almost hitting an old lady with a stroller who's randomly crossing the street, and then settles in under the awning of a movie theater, hops out and goes, "When that get there?" And we have your introduction to Mike Donnelly. And
Yes.
we immediately cut from there to Mike and Al talking at the football field. Mike's all gung ho about helping with the campaign. Al's like, "Yeah, great, thanks. I need you right here though. You're not coming with me. Stay in the town and just promote me here." And
Yeah.
Mike's like,
Be
"Cool."
be my cheerleader at home, win over the people, hometown, and don't do anything.
Pretty much. So we cut to Al in the limo. He's preparing for his meeting with the dock workers union. Him and his right hand guy, his name is Roger. They're talking about damage control for Mike. They need someone, a handler, a babysitter for this guy. We hear over the intercom in the limo, like, "Oh, if someone were to volunteer with this, would he get a seat in your cabinet if you were elected?" And Al's like, "Yes, he would." And then we roll down that little partition. David Head pokes his creepy little face out and smiles.
David Spade pokes his little head out through, not David Head.
I say David.
Yeah, you said David. I, I know you were going for David Spade's head pops up, but David Head.
This is what happens when we don't like the movie.
Right. So you know what this is? It feels like I mean it's all Saturday Night Live stuff, but it feels like a bit where you got the political candidate and his doofy brother who kind of runs in and out.
That's
And
exactly what the movie is.
right, but you would see the skit on Saturday Night Live at like a press conference or something that lasts for 5 minutes or so, and then it's done. Chris Farley was funny, and then we move on. It's not a full movie worth of this guy.
Right.
Sorry, Chris Farley.
Hey, he hated it as much as we did. Probably more.
Probably.
So, so yeah. David Spade's character's name is Steve. Steve volunteered. I said David Spade this
You did.
time.
I
Okay.
was remembering because I ran into Gary.
Don't start.
At least we can have fun.
Yeah. Sorry. I'm sorry I made you watch this movie.
Okay. It wasn't long.
Thankfully. What was the redeeming quality about Black Sheep? I don't know. It wasn't very long.
It was short. Might have been our shortest movie, aside from Manos, but
Right. But Manos has 2 sequels.
yeah, and I enjoy Manos.
Wow. Hey, real quick, this or McHale's Navy?
Oh, I think I'd watch this again. I guess I enjoyed more parts of this than I don't know. Huh. I didn't even think about that like, oh, this is definitely the worst thing. Like Mikhail's neighbor, like, oh, I never want to watch that
Oh, wow.
again. Sorry, Tom Arnold.
So we cut to Mike at the rec center, and he's he's invented his own little hands. He's got the phone to his head, and he's got like a sweatband wrapped around his head and the phone so he could be hands free, which is pretty smart.
Well, yeah, but they sell those for 19.99 on QVC. The hands-free phone device.
He just makeshifted one.
Okay, yes, yes. This part made me laugh.
Oh, I thought this part was horrifying.
It was definitely horrifying, but it made me laugh.
He's making all kinds of off-color, dirty jokes.
You never hear a punchline.
No, no,
It's
it's the setup.
it's the
So,
setup.
but that was a Chris Farley staple. You'd either get like the introduction to the joke and nothing else, or you get the punchline and nothing else.
Yeah,
And I think it's I don't know.
I think the punchline on this was on this bit was pretty funny, where it's like, oh no, I'm sorry, sweetie. Is your daddy home?
Oh, no, don't hang up. But like you're you're calling you're cold calling people and you are representing the potential governor of the state of Washington.
Yeah. It's like setting somebody's model cars on fire on their desk when you're trying to sell them brake pad.
That is funny.
Regardless, that bit made me chuckle. Did we lose our train of thought?
The next scene, I was supposed to write something down and I didn't.
Oh, okay. Um, so to
So let me,
paraphrase, he's cold calling people about the campaign and is doing an awful job at it.
yes. And then after the little girl hangs up the phone, we go to Mike playing football with the kids, and he
Yeah,
does the same football play in this that he called in Tommy Boy when he was going to tip the cow, a 32
yeah,
belly option.
yes, he does, and that was a cute little fun
Nod to a good
fact.
movie.
So the whole rec center thing that's going on here, completely unnecessary. Um,
100%.
I mean, not that he works at the rec center. That's fine. Just the whole little weird storyline with the football and the kid, and because it's like 2 minutes here, a minute here, another minute, and then it's done. It doesn't serve a purpose. I mean, if he works at the rec center, great, in and out.
I don't.
You don't need to see.
I think without that though, the movie's not long enough.
That's why it's there.
Okay. So apparently he has he scores a touchdown. Apparently the new kid has a good arm. The opposing team is upset that the teams aren't fair. So Mike calls them all a bunch of losers, and
Yeah,
they leave. And Mike bonds with Scott, the new kid.
yeah. Scott, the new kid. Which you're looking at that, I'm like, I don't remember being a kid in this movie, which is why I think it's completely unnecessary.
Yeah, yeah. And so Mike's talking to him, and the kid's like, "Did your mom?" And Mike's like, "Hey, kid, does your mom and dad know that you got an arm like that?" And the kid's like, "Oh, my parents are divorced, so logically, I live with my grandmother." Like his parents split up, and like neither one of them wanted him.
I assumed they died, so I missed that part where he said they were
He
divorced.
straight up says, "My parents are divorced, so I live with my grandma." And I'm going, "That's not how that works." How bad are your parents that the judge saw them split up and was like, you know what? Neither of you can have this kid.
Well, I mean, sometimes it happens for good reasons. Like,
We'll just gloss over the rest of that sentence. So we cut to Steve driving. Apparently, he's looking for Mike's house or where to
Yes,
turn or something.
he's looking
And
for Mike. He's Mike Donnelly.
yeah, and he hits a guy who's crossing the street and gets into a bit of an argument with him. And this is
This is
Gary
such a
Busey.
weird. This is such a weird scene.
I wonder if Gary Busey was even supposed to be in this movie, or he just like wandered on set and David Spade hit him, and then he reacted to David Spade hitting him, and they just recorded it, and they're like, "Well, he's in the movie now." Is anyone
We
gonna
can do
tell?
we can do rewrites, right? We gotta add this guy to the script.
But yes, it's Gary Busey, and he plays. I'm gonna name the character now. I said Doctor, definitely not Doctor. He plays Sergeant Drake Savage,
Sergeant Savage.
and he is very aggressive with Steve.
Well, Steve just hit him with a car,
He
and
was not
Steve.
walking across a crosswalk. He walked out in the middle of the road, and Steve
It's
hit him.
Buckley. That happens in Buckley.
Apparently, so so Gary Busey is making threats, and at one point you see him go for his knife.
Yeah, he's threatening to pull Steve out of the car and just beat him in the street.
Yeah, and then Steve tells him he's number one,
Yeah, he's like, you know what? I'm sorry, I got a little souvenir for you. He tells him he's number one and drives off.
and then rounds the corner, and there is a traffic jam. And so instead of pulling into that parking spot that's open right there and shutting the car off real quick and ducking down, he leaves his
Yes,
car in the middle of the street and runs.
yes, he gets out of his car and he books it.
Yes. So we cut to Mike Donnelly, who drops off Scott, and as Scott's going inside, Mike suddenly decides that, you know what? You can throw a football, and you and I should play football after school every day and work on your arm.
Yeah, and this is, I'd say, Friday, right?
Yes.
Okay.
It's weird no matter how you cut
God,
it.
it's very weird. There's a certain point I'm watching this. I'm like, I was watching it about halfway through. Is this the same day?
Well, I'm just talking about like you meet a kid and you're like, "Hey, you and me after school, we're gonna play football." And it's like, "I just met you, buddy." Like,
It's okay. The other kids love me.
I mean, I get you work at the rec center, but bit much. Give it a couple give it like a month. This kid's like, "Dude, I don't know. I guess they're trying to force the bond."
I mean, there's got to be the bond there to make the big emotional moment at the end happen.
Sure. It's just it just felt way too forced. Um,
At least there's no forced love story in this one.
yeah, that would be bad. Anyway, so we cut to Mike at a shop working on cars, and a cop car rolls in. Turns out it's his buddy Robbie, and he's showing off his cop car, and he's like, "Look what I got! Nitrous oxide. That's cool." Because apparently nitrous oxide in cop cars is a new thing. I don't know. They're setting it up for later.
It's a nitrous booster, right? It's not supposed to be in cop cars, but
Oh, okay.
you see it
It's
more in
cool.
like you see it more in like the Fast and the Furious and Tokyo Drift.
Sure. So we cut back to Steve, who's walking out of the barber shop. And surprise, his car's gone. And he's surprised that his car's gone. Why is he surprised that his car's gone?
He shouldn't be. No.
I'm saying. So then we cut to Governor Tracy. Kind of some sharp cuts in this. I mean, I
Yeah,
guess it.
yeah, there are a bunch of sharp cuts. I mean, a lot of these scenes feel like they could go on a little bit longer and have more information and have them make sense to a movie. So they feel like they're cut too short or not enough thought had been put into the script when they were making it.
Yeah,
Um,
written in a
but
weekend.
written in a weekend.
So we cut to the current governor. And she
She-
ain't a very nice lady.
She's a yeah.
What was that?
I was gonna say she's a peach.
Yeah, she's a peach. And I didn't really write down much there because I was over it. And so we cut back to Mike at the gas station.
And this movie has the most on top of it paparazzi guys in it. They always seem to be at the right spot at the right time.
It's just a guy who's really good at his job.
Yeah. It's like, I have nothing better to do except sit in my car and watch this guy.
Well, that's how we'll find out more about him as we meet him more. But like that's his livelihood.
Yeah.
is the political game. So we cut back to Mike. He pulls into a gas station. Him and Steve. Steve runs in. Mike overhears some kids drinking
Did we
and
skip
decides,
did we skip the point where Mike and Steve meet?
ah, yeah, yeah. I skipped two parts. I stopped right at Steve. Steve's car's gone. He's surprised that it's gone. He walks to Mike's house. They come up with a game plan of what they're going to do. They're going to canvass the area. They're going to go to the supermarket down the road. They're going to meet some nice people. They're going to talk. It's going to be kind of a low key day of spreading the word of, not the word, they're not spreading the gospel. They are going to be talking about Al Donnelly. And
Spreading the good word of Al Donnelly.
yeah, no. And then Mike closes his thumbs in the hood of the car. That
that, that
that made me laugh.
that made me laugh too.
And then, but it's not like they're gonna beat that joke to death throughout the rest of the movie, though. Anyway,
Not as much as you
Steve,
think.
fair. Steve figures out what's going on. Finally, opens the hood and gets Mike's thumbs out of there. We cut to them at the supermarket. Mike is doing cartwheels and yelling and screaming at people.
He's got like
Steve
30 buttons on his vest or jacket.
doing dances, scares the heck out of I was gonna say an elderly couple, but it's mom and son.
I don't think so. I think it's an elderly couple. They just call each other Ma and Pa.
No, because she definitely first names him, and he calls her mother.
All right.
And so he's first he scares them, then he forcibly loads their groceries into the
He
trunk,
just takes the groceries out of his hands like, "I got this for you."
and then they're like, "No thanks," and he's just like, "Ah, nonsense," and just starts throwing them in there. Not even gently. You don't know what they got in there.
No, no, they don't. Their eggs are smashed. Their bread's on the bottom now.
Yeah, and then he's like, "Oh, I'll close the trunk for you," and fights the guy to close the trunk,
Yeah,
and then he isn't gonna close his thumbs in it, so he goes up and does it with his wrists and closes his tie in it, and
yeah.
then gets drug behind the car.
I don't know why, but that made me laugh too. You see the sparks coming off all the buttons, and,
And
and then the guy inside's like, "I think we lost him because when he fell down, they didn't see him in the back anymore."
yeah, and like you were saying, I really wish I could have said that's not funny, but it was so good.
Oh, when it works, it worked for me. It was and it was just that what 3 minutes clip of the the interaction of Farley doing his thing and the 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 physical comedy behind it,
Yeah,
and I liked that bit.
that little grocery store bit was great. But unfortunately, all good things must come to an end,
And the movie continues.
and and then we cut to we meeting Governor Tracy,
Oh,
and
okay.
she's doing her publicity thing, and she's playing making nice in front of the camera, and then she's after she's away from the public eye, she's not nice to
Right.
her the people helping her out, and she's
And
mad that
that's one of her guys is D-Day from Animal House.
yeah, yeah, she's they leak it out that Al is closing the gap and catching up. So it's going to be a close race. Then we pull to Mike and then we cut to Mike and Steve pulling into the gas station. Mike hears the kids drinking, goes over and checks it out, decides to give them a very involved say no to drugs speech.
Right. It's
But it's
like, "Hey guys, let's," like he's gonna join them for a second, and then it's the hard, "What are you doing?"
Yeah, so it's like he's sitting there pretending to drink it, and they pass him a joint, and he's pretending to smoke it, and so he's doing all that stuff to kind of make fun of it.
Right.
And then you see the paparazzi guy come out, and he takes pictures, and he's like, "Woohoo! This guy's a gold mine." And then as soon as the paparazzo leaves, you hear Mike say it's poppycock, and the beer bottle break.
Yeah, yeah. And I don't know why I need to bring it up, but there's one of the common things is Steve told Mike not to move, to just stay where he's at
Right.
while went into the gas station, and Mike didn't listen. which
Of course not.
is a reoccurring theme of people telling Mike to stay in one spot and he doesn't,
Yeah,
or to stay put and don't move.
yeah. So then we cut to Al getting ready for his speech for the teachers union, and um, he gets showed the pictures of Mike drinking and smoking with the kids. That sounds bad.
I mean, that's
And that's pretty much what he gets. It looks like he's doing, and it's explained that he was giving the kids a say no speech, and kind of oh well, because
right. The paper's not going to write a retraction, and if they do, it'll be like on the last page because
it who cares at that point,
this is so much better.
right? And then from there we cut to Governor Tracy. She's at a lumberjack convention. It's not a convention, but she's speaking to the lumberjacks.
Yeah, yeah. She's in Washington. The talking to the lumberjacks union.
Yeah, yeah. And they have it all staged up for her to take a whack at a tree and have it fall over, and she hits the tree once and nothing happens, and she recovers nicely, I think.
Yeah,
It was a good,
that's what her advisor D-Day says.
yeah.
I'm just gonna
I
call him D-Day from now on because I don't know his real name in the movie.
I wanted to say Wellington, but that's not right. I might just be hungry. But anyway, um so yeah, she takes another whack at the tree and it falls over onto the food table.
Yeah, not the best.
And yep,
This this
I
line
know what
here
that
made me
means.
laugh.
Oh, which line?
Well, D-Day shows her the paper too about Mike and the kids and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And she's looking like it at it, and she says, this is great. He's like Roger Clinton, Billy Carter, and all of Ronald Reagan's family rolled into one.
Yeah. That was pretty good. And then she implies that they need to lean into the Mike wrecking things for Al, and if something can happen, make it happen, implying that she might be willing to do things less than legal.
Yes.
So then we cut to Mike at the rec center, talking to Steve, and he's been fired. We find out that this last fiasco with him, kids, and drugs is a zero tolerance for the rec center, and he's been asked to clear out his stuff and leave.
Yeah, yeah, it's not a good look. They don't care about the facts of what happened. The optics look bad, and he can't be there anymore.
Right. And this part right here, Chris Farley was a better actor than I think he ever got credit for. Because you can see the nuance in his acting of like, take the scene right there where he's getting fired. His eyes are welling up. He's not like choking or anything, like choked up or crying or anything like that. But he has the sentiment. He has what?
He's realizing there's so much more of this movie left to film.
He's a method actor.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, Chris, he had, and I think I mentioned this in Tommy Boy. He had so many other projects that he wanted to do, getting away from the same tired old comedy routine, the slapstick, the fat guy falling down, the idiot.
Right.
He wanted to go somewhere further with it, and you can see in the heartfelt moments of all the movies he's in that he actually could act.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you definitely see it there. It would have loved to see more of him in different types of roles.
Yeah, I
I
mean,
mean,
I
because
think
all of them are basically this, and he only did 4 movies, right? Um,
starring in, yeah,
yeah, starred in like like the main star of like it was Tommy Boy, Black Sheep, Beverly Hills Ninja,
and
and
Almost
Almost
Heroes.
Heroes, or is it
Yeah.
Wagons East?
Wagons East was John Candy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he had. I mean, he had other projects that they were gonna do,
Yeah.
and that he wanted to do, and so it's just a lot of people say that he wasn't funny, and I get his comedy's not for everybody, but it would have been nice to see him actually have some kind of a career.
Yeah.
Anywho, so he's fired. He asked for a little bit of time by himself to kind of clear out to get his stuff together, and you see him just kind of wandering around the rec center getting his stuff and looking through his trophies and pictures and memories being there. We find
Yeah,
out
it
that he
I
go
was gonna
ahead
say in this movie, David Spade's a lot less of a jerk than he is in Tommy Boy too.
and a lot less likable.
Yeah.
or I don't know. But yeah, so Mike's getting his stuff and he's getting out, and there's two dudes standing in front of the rec center, and they're kind of heckling him,
Yeah.
and yeah, they light the place on fire and leave.
Yeah, they say something about his brother, and then drop a thing of matches on the ground that's lit, and they
Yeah,
clearly laid a trail of gasoline or kerosene or some type of accelerant.
yeah, and then they wander off. We see paparazzo
Paparazzo.
guy taking pictures, and then he leaves.
As Mike's dancing in the fire trying to put it out.
Right. Yeah. Uh, Robbie shows up, Mike's cop friend, and
That's a, that
commits
that
a
that's good to
massive
remind
felony.
people who Robbie is.
Yeah, the cop friend, and then he commits a massive felony and tells
Robbie's not a
Mike,
good cop.
or maybe he is a good cop. No, he's not a great cop.
He's
Anyway,
not a bad cop. He's just bad at being a cop.
yeah,
That's it.
yeah, and he tells Mike to take off. So Mike and Steve take off. They're driving, and Steve's on the phone with, I forget the guy's name.
Roger.
Roger.
Al.
Thank you. Yeah, no, he's with Roger, and
Okay.
they're both in agreement that, and yeah. So Steve says that no, Mike didn't start the fire.
He's on the phone trying to play it off like the answer to that question would have to be no. He's like, I know what you're doing.
Yeah. So, but anyway, so yeah, Alan, Mike chat for a little bit, then the phones get passed back to Steve and Roger respectively, and Roger's like, "Hey, dude, listen up. This is what's gonna happen. I need you to follow my instructions right now." And Steve's like, "I am listening," and then we kind of show them. It's not really a montage. It's a couple quick little cuts to show that they are traveling a long distance, and they end up in a cabin in Garfield County. And
Yep.
they get into the log cabin and they see a bat.
Yeah,
A bat.
I bet.
A bat. It's in my notes to do the teeth.
See,
And they dare each other to touch the bat. So they touch the bat, and there's spam in the fridge. What? What did I write? There's spam in the fridge.
because they opened the fridge at some point.
Because he's like, I'll open the fridge. You turn off all the lights, and they'll fly into the fridge because they're attracted to the light, and I'll close the door. And Steve's like, that's moths.
Right. They touch the bat and it just freaks out and starts flying everywhere, and they freak out because there's a bat flying in the
Yeah.
cap.
So we get a fun bat thing, and then there's
Bat
a point,
montage.
yeah, where they're trying to catch it in a pot and a pan, and Steve thinks he gets it, and Mike's like, "Well, open it up and see," and it's like, "Go outside and open it up in case you got it. It flies away."
Right.
So they open it up right there in the middle of the cabin. It's
And
not there,
he aims it at Mike's face.
and Mike's none the wiser to that.
He's like, "What do you see?"
Yeah, so but it's not in there, and then Mike turns around and it's in his hair, and that part with it being in his hair reminded me of Malcolm in the Middle because he's like, "Oh God, it's biting my scalp," where Malcolm in the episode of Malcolm in the Middle where they buy the armoire for Lois and it's full of bats and they all hide, and they're like, "Dewey, you have to go out and scare it because me and your brothers have long hair and you have very, very short hair. So if the bat gets caught in your hair, he will just bite you once and fly off. If he gets caught in our hair, he will bite us over and over and over again until we are dead." Yeah,
Good old Malcolm in the Middle.
no kidding. So then Steve throws a blanket over Mike and starts beating him with a broom. Very
Yep.
viciously, actually. Quite a bit of a beating. And
Yeah,
that
it's like
does,
he's definitely taking his aggression out on him at that after a certain point,
yeah, a little bit.
which
Anyway,
doesn't seem warranted for as much as they know each other already. But
yeah. I mean, because he's kicking him too.
right. It seems more like like it would fit better in Tommy Boy with Richard.
Yeah, I think it would. But anyway, so they get the idea. We cut to them with an idea where they got a blanket tied between two brooms.
Oh yeah, this whole bat thing went on for way too long.
Way too long. I'm talking about it for way too long. But so they have the bed sheets tied between two brooms and the door wide open, and they get the bat.
They boop that out.
they, they move the bat out. Yeah, they get the bat out. Then they go to bed, I believe they go to bed. Because we cut to Tracy yelling at people.
Yeah.
That's
Oh,
all I
Mike is
wrote.
all that's in the cabin is bunk beds too, and Mike called the top bunk
Yes, Mike did call the
just in
top
case
bunk.
it just in case it comes up later.
I don't,
Foreshadowing.
yeah. So we cut to Tracy, Governor Tracy, yelling at her people because Mike Al is catching up in the polls. Um,
Yeah, people like Al because people don't like Tracy.
right, and she's mad. We get our one and only F bomb of the movie here, which I was not aware of,
PG-13, they get one.
and and she used it. We cut. Yeah, she says you all need to do something about it, and they're all like, okay, and she's like screams no, and they all leave, and then we cut to Mike putting Donnelly posters on every single tree in a heavily wooded area.
Yes, and it looks like a trail, not even a road.
Yeah, he's doing his part.
Yep.
And then we cut to Steve trying to find cell signal. Well, not really. Steve says he's gonna go try to
Right.
make a call.
Steve's like, "Good job, buddy. Keep doing this. I'm gonna go try and make a phone call."
Yep. So Steve is walking around. He's trying to get as high up as possible. He sees a rock ominously hanging right behind the log cabin.
Yeah.
Decides that's a good place to stand.
You can you can see it right over his shoulder. Look, you see David Spade's face. He's trying to get a phone call, and right behind him is this rock just looming over him. Which you're like, okay, something's gonna happen with that rock.
Well, and then he goes up there. He's making the call, and it's not working. And then he slips, and it's like, oh, ooh. And then we cut to him walking down a trail, and we get a car full of red-headed rednecks. Like that one, did you? They pull up in a
Was there
pick.
an?
Yeah,
You want to say the line?
go ahead.
What is there an Opie convention?
And they immediately know he's not from around there, and they spray him with a fire extinguisher.
Yes.
And then we cut to Mike. Yes, I'm cutting that
Yes.
joke out. And Mike takes a big old whiff of the country air and notices a house down at the bottom of a very large hill and
Yes.
says every vote counts and begins to trudge down the hill, takes 2 steps, and falls.
Yes. This is a very common GIF that you see in memes and things.
Yes.
Um.
Fun fact,
Okay.
this fall was done by Chris Farley himself.
Yes. From what I understand, he did most of his stunts.
Yes. To the displeasure of the director.
Yes. Who didn't want the actor getting hurt?
Yes. I think there were two parts where it was not Chris tumbling down the hill, but very brief, but pretty much all of it was him. What?
I forgot I had a fun fact about the bat.
Throw it out there.
The bat for most of the scenes was a animatronic that was built and controlled by Greg Nicotero, who does special effects on a lot of things. Most notably, The Walking Dead.
That is a fun fact.
Yeah, that was it.
Okay.
It would have been better during the bat sequence.
It was still better than the movie. So then we cut to Steve walking in the woods covered in fire extinguisher juice.
Does he land at the bottom of the hill?
No, Mike just falls forever. Yes, he lands at the bottom of the hill, throws a vote for Donnelly brochure in the mailbox, and walks along.
Okay.
Then we cut to Steve walking in the woods and sees his car and sees Gary Busey. Not Gary Busey. Well, yes, Gary Busey, but the character's name is Sergeant Drake Savage.
AKA Mr. Busey.
Yes. So he's like, oh, that's the guy that's got my car. And we see Sergeant Savage go into his school bus that he lives in. And that's pretty much all that happens there. And we get back to Steve at the cabin telling Mike about, hey, you know that psychopath that tried to beat me up for hitting him with my car? Who had stole my car? Hey, well, it turns out he lives like a mile from here. And Mike's like, you gotta stand up for yourself. You gotta go get your car back. And then we find snakes in the well. And they run away. And he's like, one of them looked at me. I had the captions on. He actually says, one of them looked at
One
me.
of them looked at me.
So they're running off and they find a lake. This was not Farley. No. But they find a lake. They say they're going to go swimming. Mike tells Steve to go wash that stuff off and go swimming in the lake. And then he walks off camera. And then you see a guy who's clearly not Chris Farley.
Yes.
rope swing in and does a backflip 3/4 twist
Into a
into
dive.
into a dive into the water fully clothed. And the spectacle of the splash that Chris Farley makes scares a bunch of animals and loosens the rock. Which I was just about to say, you know what? I really don't like I really like that there's not a bunch of lean into fat guy jokes in this movie. That was a subtle one.
Yeah.
So we cut back to the cabin and they're playing checkers. Steve's winning. Mike gets real mad. So
Because it's really easy to win when you don't move your back row.
right. And so Steve is like, "Oh, well, where do you want me to move this one?" And starts letting Mike win. And then and then Mike gets real mean about it.
Yeah.
And
It's a weird scene.
it's weird. And then stuff like and then I don't know if he wins, but he's like, "Oh man, this is fun." And Steve's like, "Yeah, it was."
Not a bad joke. I like that one.
Yeah, that was good. Fun fact about the checkers thing.
Yes.
So when they were filming Tommy Boy, they were flying back and forth from Toronto to New York because they were doing Saturday Night Live at the same time.
Makes
And
sense.
Chris and David would often play checkers, and David would beat Chris at checkers constantly because he never moved his back row. And so that whole checkers bit was a nod to that.
That's fair.
That's where that came from. Oh yeah, and when he yells, it loosens. When he yells that he never moves the back row, it loosens the rock a little more. And then a bird poops,
Oh,
and
yeah, that's what happened. I'm like,
that
how
causes it
did
to fall.
yeah, rock falls.
Yep. And then the rock falls and it hits the cabin and knocks it completely off the foundation.
Yes.
It's great. So they get thrown out of the cabin, and then they go back in the cabin.
And it's sitting at, like, 45 degrees, like a
Something
45.
like yeah, it's yeah about that, maybe a little less. And Steve's like, "Oh look, the fridge is held up by this plug," and then he unplugs it. That made me laugh too. That was
Because
good.
Mike was standing in front of the fridge.
Yeah, and it's like, well, I mean, yeah, I guess a heavy fridge. You're at that angle, you wouldn't have the forward. You would, you get knocked back pretty quick.
They did.
Yeah, and so yeah, he gets smashed against the front of it, and then we cut to Mike. Mike and Steve are walking through the woods. We cut from there to that,
See,
and
weird
Mike's like,
some weird jarring cuts in this one.
yeah, and he's like, "Oh man, I can't believe I forgot to call Scott." And so he's looking for a signal
Yeah, the kid that
that I
randomly is
forgot existed in the movie.
so did Mike.
See, not important at all.
No. They
And so
they is this where they cut to him sitting alone at the on the bleacher?
right after this, yeah, I cut
Okay.
to the scene because Mike's like, Steve's like, "Oh, you're never gonna get it. You're never gonna make the call," and Mike's like, "Oh, it's easy. You just gotta find a signal." And it's like, okay. And so he's got making the call and he's running around and he hits his head on a tree and falls down because duh. And then he somehow miraculously gets through in like 30 seconds of trying,
Yeah.
where Steve walked like miles and couldn't get a signal. Anyway, so Mike tells gets a hold of the grandma, tells the grandma that he had to go out of town, pass the message along to Scott. She says, "Oh, Scott's not here, but I'll." Actually, she doesn't even say she'll tell him. She just says, "Okay, bye bye," and it hangs up. And then we cut to Scott sitting on the bleachers. It's almost dark,
Right.
and and then he shakes his head, all mad, and storms off.
Right. Like nobody at the rec center would say, "Dude got fired."
Yeah, it's been a whole day since that happened.
Maybe 2 days.
Maybe yeah, because it's a lot. Yeah,
Because like I was saying, I think that was a Friday. They come back Monday. They're out of town.
yeah. He hasn't seen the paper. First
Yeah.
of all, the rec center's burned down.
There's that too. That's right. The rec center is a pile of ash on the ground. Like, oh, he didn't play football with me. The building's still smoldering 20 feet away.
He's oh oh that's right. He hasn't been linked to it. The fire.
Not yet. No.
Spoilers.
Oh, sorry.
No, you're not. Anyway, so we cut to that night, and there is a storm, and that bunk bed does not look like it should be holding adults, let alone an adult of Chris Farley's size.
No, it does not, and it feels like there was supposed to be a bunk bed joke earlier involving the bunk bed that got cut out.
Probably. Anyway, this storm rips the roof off of the cabin,
It does, and it starts hailing.
and Steve starts making fun of Mike.
Mike.
Oh, I got the top bug. How's the weather up there? Then the bed breaks, and Mike comes crashing down on top of Steve.
And David Spade's scream at that point made me laugh so much.
I think that is the only part in the movie that Rachel actually laughed at.
That is fair. You knew it was coming too. It's just all of a sudden it happens. It's like, yep, this it did exactly what I wanted it to
Yep, nope, they did it right. Yep.
do.
And now we cut to the next day, where Mike calls Al, but Al's busy, so he talks to Roger, and Roger tells him what he really thinks of him,
Uh-huh.
and then hangs up. And then Mike starts talking to Steve about how,
Well, Roger tells Mike that Al doesn't like him either and wants him gone.
right. So Mike starts talking to Steve about his brilliant idea of going down to Seattle to the Rock the Vote concert so he can talk to Al in person, because,
That makes sense.
yeah, the exact opposite of what he should be doing. But Steve's asleep,
Yeah,
so
so
Mike goes.
he does. He hops in the car and drives off.
Yeah, and so we cut to Mike making it there.
Yeah, we see the Space Needle and everything.
Yeah, he's there. There's some guy hassling some security guards, and there just happens to be a spare security guard a hat and jacket laying around. So
I don't.
Mike,
It's not even a security guard jacket. He just grabs a hat that says security.
okay, puts it on
It's yeah.
and starts yelling at the dude trying to get into the show for free. And do you have a fun fact about the scene?
I have a fun fact about the two other security guards.
Go ahead.
That those are Farley's brothers, Kevin and John.
Yes, they are. And so when he's yelling at the guy, you can see his brothers standing behind him.
Yeah, and I so thought he was gonna rip the guy's nose ring out.
That was Airheads.
I know, but I thought it was I thought it might call back to that or something because it's just the nose ring is sitting right there. He's yelling at him, and I'm like, he's just gonna reach up there and pull that out, isn't he?
Didn't have to. I'm glad
No.
he didn't, because that's a bit much. But anyway, so Mike gets some compliments about his security securing.
Yeah, it says he's gonna rip his head off and spike it like a football.
Something like that. He just starts yelling and looks crazy, and it works. The guy leaves. The other security guard's like, "Oh man, that was great." And he's like, "Yep, well, see ya," and then just kind of leaves. I mean, they don't really explain what happens. He just kind of wanders off.
Right. He's I mean, he's got the security hat on. He's getting everywhere he needs to.
Yeah. So he goes into a dressing room. It's the wrong room.
Yep.
There is a reggae band in there.
Yep.
And they're doing something.
They're eating some sandwiches.
They're eating some sandwiches. A lot of sandwiches in that room. They offer
Yes.
Mike some sandwiches, and he says he never touches sandwiches. And then we cut to Mudhoney getting announced.
Mudhoney in this movie.
Yes, this really is Mudhoney too. And for many of you listening to this, maybe not, I don't know. Mudhoney is
We know
very
who listens.
yes, Mudhoney is very underrated. They some say that they actually paved the way for Nirvana and Seattle grunge.
Interesting.
They were founded in 1988, and they came up through the late 80s and early 90s. They had an underperforming album that came out right around the same time that Nirvana's Nevermind took off.
Ah,
But yes, they are a forgotten Seattle grunge band that did a lot for the movement of grunge music in Seattle.
shout out to Mudhoney. Woo!
So we cut back to Mike, who is
Had several sandwiches.
he's had a few sandwiches. He's partying with the band. They're talking about issues they have. Mike's listening to them, and he's deciding that he is going to do something about their issues, and he's going to go talk to somebody.
Yeah.
And so while he's going to find somebody to talk to about it, he runs into Mudhoney, who's apparently just finished their set after one song.
Well, I think that's to signify the passage of time of Mudhoney did their set, and now he's had sandwiches that whole time, and now he's out.
Right. Okay. And so he's talking to Mudhoney because he likes Mudhoney, and they're like, "Who are you?" And he's like, "I'm Mike Donnelly." And they're like, "Dude, Governor Donnelly, get out there and seek your peace, man." And so they throw him out on stage.
Yeah, they grab him and throw him out there.
Yeah. And so he starts off well.
He's monologuing.
He's going for it, and
He's
he's starting off okay, and he does all right because he is pandering to a Seattle grunge crowd.
yeah,
So,
yeah. And
so
he starts off being what is it? Just it's cool to vote. Let's get out there and vote. And then he just starts doing buzzwords,
and
buzz
then
phrases. Let's be Americans. I have a dream. And
we gotta fight for your right to vote.
yeah,
And then he like slides across the stage on his belly at one point, and then later he just kind of like flails about and screams.
yeah. This whole time, his brother and Roger's campaign manager are watching him on TV, and his brother's like, "Oh, I'm having a panic attack. This isn't happening."
Yeah, it is not good. And when he does that weird like shake his whole head and just go like, "Rah."
Yeah.
I laughed. I think Rachel and I both. That might have been the one of two times that Rachel laughed in the movie because that was just like, what?
He's just losing his mind out there after so many
Yeah,
sandwiches and
yeah, and it's all going great until he sees his friends from earlier, and he sees them, and he's like, "Oh, hey guys," and it grabs the mic, and then we get the probably the most famous line from the movie when he yells, "Kill Whitey."
the change of the crowd is instant. It's like
Instant
Bill Whitey. Silence.
silence, and then it cuts to the band off stage, and they're like, "No!"
You don't say that.
And then we cut to Al and Mike talking.
Yeah, that's a, that is a very I don't want it's not a jarring cut. It's a very appropriate jarring cut because you're going
Yes.
this to that. That kind of cut works, but
Oh,
that
so good. Yeah, and so and Al's just like, "What are you doing?" Like, you could tell he's fed up. He's like, "I ask you to do this. I ask you to do that. I ask you to stay out of here, and you give me Kill Whitey."
Like I said, there's a couple good moments in this movie that
Uh,
I mean they don't stand out as amazing, but you're watching the movie like, okay, this scene works, that scene works, but it's also listed as a comedy slash drama, so it didn't feel like the movie knew what it wanted to be.
right? Yeah, yeah. We get a touching moment, or we get not touching. We get a moment from from Mike where it just you could tell he feels awful for everything that he's done,
Right. He's just like,
and that
I
is
was here and I ended up somewhere and then some sandwiches happened. I don't know how it happened. And then I'm on stage and
yeah, all I wanted to do was come down here and talk to you, and I just made a whole mess of it.
yeah.
And then we cut back to Mike and Steve talking back up at the cabin.
Yep. And we didn't check in on Steve that whole time he was in Seattle.
He was asleep.
Yeah.
He slept through it all.
Yep.
And then, so yeah, Mike's talking to Steve about, or yeah, he's lamenting about how what a horrible brother he is. Steve's like, "Well, I'm probably fired for not stopping you from doing that." And we're gonna miss the debate. And Mike's
Right.
like, "The debate's today?"
Yeah, what was it? Mike says, "Oh man, I'm sorry." He's like, "You sorry for what you did to your brother or my career?"
Which was a good joke.
Yeah,
That's funny.
but
And
yeah,
so
they realize the debate is that day.
they're like, "Oh man, we need to find a TV." And Mike's like, "I know where to find a TV. I saw it at some point."
Yeah, I saw it when I was putting out leaflets.
Right, right. And so they go to Gary Busey's house.
And as David Spade says, like, of course it's this guy's house.
Right. But so they go here
Yes.
and are they planning to knock on the door? Cuz landmines start going off and they're like, "Oh, let's get closer to this place."
Right. The linemen start going off. They yell run and they run into the school bus, not away from what's going on. They run towards it more.
Right. And they break into this guy's house.
Plain quote unquote house.
Bus.
Bus. House. House. Yes, it's a tiny home.
They start looking around. Then they just help themselves to watch his TV.
Right. They realize that he's a army vet,
Yeah.
that he comes from a long line of army vets,
Mhm.
and that his couch is squishy.
And has a funny smell.
Yeah.
So so they turn on the debate.
Yeah.
And apparently his brother's doing pretty good.
Yeah, he's got retorts for what Governor Big Hair, what's her name?
Tracy.
What everybody, he's got good retorts and comebacks to whatever Governor Tracy says. She brings up Mike, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm not so concerned about my brother's problems. I'm more concerned about the state's problems. I love my brother. He's got his own thing, but let's focus on the state and
Yeah.
go Washington."
Pretty much. And then Steve leaves to go potty.
Right. And Mike's all touched that his brother still says he loves him and
Yeah.
got his back.
Right.
On national TV or on national T not national TV, local TV.
Yeah. In front of hundreds.
Yeah.
So Steve leaves to go potty. While
Yes.
he's going potty, Mr. Savage, Sergeant Savage comes home
Yes.
and asks him what he's doing on his premises.
Yes.
And first, Steve starts being a smart aleck, and then he realizes how serious Sergeant Savage is about him being there and ending his life.
He's also holding an Uzi.
He is. Right, like I said, until Steve actually notices the mortal danger in which he is in, he starts being a smart aleck.
Yeah.
And then when the Uzi comes up into plain view of everybody, he's like, "Oh, I just came for the car and an apology." Which, question,
Yes.
if he had not said "and an apology," do you think he still would have shot the car?
Maybe. It's like, "There's your car."
Well, because he's like, "Oh, is that all?" And he starts
Yeah,
laughing, and he goes to Crazy Town real fast. And he goes, "Well, here's your car," and hands him the key back. And then he picks up the gun, cocks it, and goes, "And here's my apology," and shoots the car.
Yeah.
So had he omitted the apology, he would have just gotten the car back, logically speaking.
Right. Right. What he should have said is, "I'm here for the car and to apologize." But
That would have been better. So Tommy, not Tommy, Mike hears that,
I miss Tommy.
and he comes out, and they engage in hand-to-hand combat.
Yeah, he tackles him.
Yeah, and
It's
yeah, they wrestle it out a bit, and then they're facing off, and Drake's like, "I'm seriously impressed. Those are some pretty good moves. You want to come inside?" And they're like, "Hey, man, you ever?" And Mike's like, "You ever seen any Bruce Lee movies?" He's like, "I got them all on Laserdisc." And they go into the bus, and they're friends.
and the scene cuts.
Yeah,
Like there should be more there.
I think so. But we cut to Governor Tracy at dinner, and she is not happy. She's kind of walking around, checking out the party. She sends a 13-year-old to bed who's doing nothing but dancing and having a good time.
Right, right. It's her 13-year-old, right?
I think so,
What are you doing here? Go to bed.
pretty much.
Oh yeah, and she's ridiculously offensive to their nanny.
Yes. Yes, it's bad.
It is
It's
bad.
bad, bad. They're trying to make you not like this woman as much as they can.
It's working.
It is. And then D-Day comes up
Yeah.
and is like, "Hey, there's a guy who wants to talk to you." And so he's sitting at a table, and they walk over and they sit down, and camera guy,
It's the paparazzo.
yeah, he explains that he's got some. Oh yeah, they come up and they introduce him. D-Day kind of introduces him. He goes, "This is Mister, Mister." But he'd say his name, and he's like, Mister's fine.
Yeah.
And he's like, "I got pictures of your boys burning down the rec center, or I have pictures that look like Mike Donnelly did it. What I do is I wait for election time and have pictures for against both and approach whoever's down in the polls. And something tells me I'm going to be glad that you were behind."
Yeah. Yeah, he's an
And
extortionist.
yes, and so he shows her the pictures that she wants to see and the pictures that she doesn't want to see. And she thinks she's clever, and she's like, "Well, now you're gonna have to tell me your name so I know who to make the check out to." And he quickly retorts with, "My best friends call me Cash." So clearly not his first rodeo. That's why he's so good at it.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Because he does not have to do it often. Because he probably
True.
makes a whole lot of money doing that. So we cut to Mike voting.
Which is a ridiculous scene.
There's no point to it at all. We all knew he
No.
was going to vote. We do not need him to go into some lady's driveway who built her own polling booth. And I mean, because you can do that, or you could do that. I don't know if you still can.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
probably
You,
still
you
can.
have the polling booths at people's houses and stuff.
Yeah,
It's sanctioned, but yeah, it was a filler scene to extend it and try and put a laugh in there.
right. And it's horrifying because he goes in, he votes, he gets stuck.
Yeah, he turns around. He turns around. Curtains open. He's like, "Wait, I'm stuck."
Wait,
It's
does he
like,
like turn and wedge himself in there?
I don't know, because he walked in, they closed the curtain behind him, everything was fine, he turned around, and then all of a sudden he's stuck in there.
Yeah, and then he like knocks it over, busts out the back of it. There's two women next to him in either side, and so he
2 elderly women.
okay, yes. And so his solution is, instead of just like climb out and pick the thing back up, he's going to punch through the back of both sides. Hopefully, not punch these women in the back of
I was wondering
in
that
the
when he's
head,
punching, it's like, he's gonna hit those ladies.
because they don't know that he's. Who thinks logically? Oh, I bet that big guy's gonna punch a hole in the back of this
I bet
to
the
pull me
big guy
out.
that knocked
I,
us over.
I better stay down.
Yeah.
Oh, so yeah, he gets the ladies out, and then one of them beats him with her purse, and he
Valid.
turns valid, and he turns in his voting
S
thing
slip.
stub slip, and she takes it. She pulls off his, I guess, receipt, hands it to him, and puts his vote in the voter box. And if it weren't illegal to throw away his vote, I'm sure she would have done it right then and there.
You don't get this right.
Right to vote is revoked.
Such a uh,
So we cut they're at Mike's house and they're watching the results, which they don't really make that clear that it's result night.
yeah, it happens
They're
really
just,
fast.
they're just kind of there watching, and then the pictures come up of Mike setting the rec center on fire, allegedly.
Yeah, it's like a shame. It's a shame that these pictures came out yesterday, and they're like, "What?"
Yeah, and so apparently that ends the election, or
That
that
costs Al the
cuts
election.
out the election, and they're doing they're showing the results, and they mentioned Cowlitz County.
Yeah,
Oh, I work in Cowlitz County.
nice.
Yeah, that's my county. Well, I don't live in it, but I work in it.
That's why I enjoy movies set in Washington because I know stuff sometimes. It's like, oh
Yeah,
yeah, I know that county. Oh, Garfield County, Pierce County.
but they only do Cowlitz and Garfield.
True, because Garfield they've been working Garfield County, so they know. But they were in Pierce County before, and they
Right,
mentioned it anyway. But yeah, they
right,
mentioned Garfield, which is where they were working.
right. And so they mentioned the results there, and Mike's like, "Well, the math ain't mathin'," right there. And then he's watching the TV, and the two cops standing behind Governor Tracy turned out to be the same two that actually burned down the rec center. And he's like, "Oh, hey, I know them." And he's like, I have an idea. And so they go to the Hall of Records to find proof of voter fraud,
Yes.
which they uncover. And it made me so mad because he opens up the records, right? And he unfolds the thing.
Yes.
And then, how hard is it to fold the creases back? How hard is it to fold it up the same way you unfolded it?
It's not. He just rolls it up haphazardly and shoves it in the binder and closes it up. It's all mishmashed, and I don't like it either.
Ugh. So they're like, huzzah, we've cracked the case. Nothing can stop us now. Dun dun dun. Guess what doesn't start? Their car. Their car doesn't start. We need a favor. Guess who they call? Robbie, cop buddy, comes back. And Mike's like, oh, thanks, man. Are you sure this is cool? And the guy's like, no. If you get caught, I'm telling him you stole it.
See, not a bad cop, but not a good cop.
Bad at being a cop.
He's bad at being a cop.
And he goes, don't use the tape deck. It shorts out.
Yes.
So we cut to them driving, listening to the tape deck, and it shorts out on them.
Yep.
Which I found this bit to be very funny
Yes.
because they're like used to it at this point,
Right. They're bopping along and headbanging to the song, and it cuts out,
and they just act like nothing happened.
and it comes back, and they start again.
Yeah.
Then it cuts out, and then it's like the last note of the song, and like, oh, that was great.
And then they come upon a construction zone. They don't want to wait for it because they're in a hurry because they got to make it by what is it, 10 a.m. or something like that.
10 a.m. is when the at the governor's mansion is when the speech is for I'm governor now again. Yay.
Yep. So they decide they're gonna go around. They don't turn the lights on or anything. They're talking over the loudspeaker. They run over some chunks in the road, and they knock nitrous oxide loose. And we see it leaking in the car.
Yes.
Then we cut to down the road, and they are a little silly.
Right. It's like what 20 minutes or so later.
Yeah, and they're pretty silly. And they're looking at the map, and they can't figure out how to say roads, and then
Road.
roads. That's one of the weird words. Yeah, it's a whole bit. It's kind of funny. And Mike's like, "Wait a minute, something's wrong." Looks back. Oh, the nitrous oxide's leaking in here. Let's not roll down a window.
Right. He's like, we're stoned, and we're gonna stay stoned.
Which, correct me if I'm wrong, but nitrous oxide is similar to any other kind of laughing gas.
Yeah.
To where if they were to roll down the windows and it were to air out, they would sober up pretty quick.
Yes.
But instead, they just keep driving with the windows up, like, okay, well, let's just maintain.
Yeah. Just
And
gotta
I'm thinking,
stay focused and
I'm just like, just roll down the window, air it out, you'll
Yeah.
be all right. And they get pulled over, and it does not go well.
such a weird scene.
It's so weird. It's so bad. I don't really care for it.
What is it? He smacks Steve and tells him to get in the back.
Yeah.
Like he's got a perp because he's wearing Roy's jacket, or at least
Yes.
a jacket.
Right, and he's Buckley Police.
Yeah.
And so yeah, he's like, "Oh yeah, I'm transporting a prisoner," and yeah, he's wanted whatever.
He's
Gives
wanted
a
for
whole
crimes
lot-
against animals.
Sure. Gives him a whole laundry list of what's going on, and then the cop's like, "Do you know how fast you're going?" He goes, "I could have been going 65, 70." And cop's 7 miles an hour. And usually when I pull people over, they pull over to the shoulder. Bird's eye view, and he's pulled into the median.
Yeah.
So the cop gives him a good scolding about, being responsible and keeping other drivers safe. Lets him go
Yeah.
for like 30 seconds, and then is right behind him again with backup. And Mike's like, well, we're going to run this time. And floors it and kicks the nitrous oxide.
Yeah.
Then
And
we
they
cut,
haul.
and they haul rubber.
Yep.
They burn rubber.
Yes. They burn rubber.
So we go to Tracy's win party.
Yes, at Tracy's win party. And you wrote it down. Maybe.
What?
Is there a news report yet? Or is that in a few minutes?
No, they make the announcement of the high-speed chase
Okay.
at the win party, and then it cuts to Mike, Al, and Roger in the limo, and they catch wind. They make the announcement over the radio or the TV in the back of the
Yeah.
Mike Donnelly being in a high-speed chase. Al's like, oh man, we got to go back. He's heading towards the governor's mansion. We got to be there to intercept. Blah blah blah. Roger's like, dude, come on. You got at some point you're just gonna have to ditch your brother. Like,
Yeah,
you
either
got to
your
pick.
brother or me.
Right. And so it shows them kicking Roger out of the limo and going to them going back to the governor's mansion.
Yes.
So Mike and Steve show up at Governor Tracy's speech. She's doing her thing. Mike and Steve are sneaking around. Mike climbs up on top of the news vans, gets his belt caught on one of the antennas, gets lifted up into the air. Governor Tracy's giving her speech. Mike is way up tall. She's in her speech. She's like, "I have the American people have spoken," and they say, "Holy guacamole!" And then the antenna breaks. He gets launched. The cops surround him because he's a wanted man, not only for burning down the rec center now, but for being at a high speed chase and apparently losing the
And this
cops.
doesn't help any.
And then
Yeah.
and then he springs up real fast, grabs one of their guns, and holds Steve hostage. And he's like, "Nobody move, or I'm gonna shoot Steve Dodge." And the cop's like, "Who?" And Steve's like, "Steve Dodge," but he's got a gun to my head, and you're a cop. What does it matter who I am?
That bit was pretty funny. Like, Steve Dodd. Who? Like, it doesn't matter.
I have that written down. I'm like, he makes a good point.
It doesn't matter. Just save me.
Steve, he's got a gun. You're a cop. What are you doing? Another good part. So Mike's at the podium, and he wants to say some stuff, and they got a sniper in position, and
And
this
he
whole,
tells him to take him out.
yeah,
Oh, no, the cops tell him to.
if you get a shot, take it.
Yeah.
And earlier I kind of glossed over it, but Mike and Steve both talked about the fact that Sergeant Savage didn't show up.
Yes, they called Sergeant Savage and said they need a favor.
Yes, he was supposed to be there to meet them. I forgot to mention that too. I guess my note taking was as good as the movie. And so the sniper's getting ready to take a shot, and Sergeant Savage is there in a tree, all in camo, face painted, notices the sniper. Al shows up at the same time too, and he's trying to plead with Mike to stop it. He's saying, "We can fix this, just put the gun down, just walk away, we can do it differently. There's better ways." And Mike's like, "Nope, this is it, this is happening now." Sniper's got a shot lined up. Sergeant Savage has a mirror and shines a light in his eyes as he's taking this shot. And that makes the sniper miss, which I'm sorry, I don't think the sniper would have missed.
No, it did.
But he shoots the microphone.
It seems like I'm out. I'm not getting paid for this.
Yep, I'm not even getting paid. I'm out. Bye.
I'm done. I'm not. Nope.
And then let's see. Yeah, there it is. Sergeant Savage jumps out of the tree with his rocket launcher.
Oh, that's right.
And
He shows up with a rocket launcher.
And he's like, everyone's gonna listen to what this guy has to say, because if you don't, I'm gonna blow people up.
Yeah. I'll end this
So-
right now.
So Mike exposes all the people in Sergeant Savage's family who voted for Governor Tracy. And she's like, "Oh, we're happy to have them as voters." And Drake Savage is like, "Hold your tongue. This is how all of them died,"
Yeah.
which is kind of funny. But so yeah,
yeah.
voter fraud. And she tries to save face, and she goes, "Well, there's a perfectly good explanation for why this has happened." And then she turns to D-Day, and D-Day's like, "There is. It was all her."
Yep. he's got like a shrimp cocktail or a glass
It's
of
a drink.
champagne. It's a
He's
drink.
got
Champagne.
he's got whiskey. He's drinking whiskey.
It's like she put us up to it. It's all her idea.
Pretty much, yeah. And so yeah, she's done. We cut to Al and Mike at the airport. Scott's there with Grandma for some reason.
Because we remembered Scott, right?
Yeah,
The kid with the football
yeah. So
who can't,
Mike's like,
who can't see a burned down rec center.
yeah. And so Mike's talking to Al. And he's like, "Hey man, this is the kid I was telling you about with the cool arm. Come over here, kid." And he's like, "Oh, Mr. Governor, can I have your autograph?"
I wasn't gonna say anything, but
I heard it. I'm gonna cut that out.
can I have your autograph?
So Al's like, "Sure, kid." Signs it, hands it back to him, and he's like, "Oh, this kid's got a cannon. Throw it over here, Scott." So he throws the ball that was just signed by the governor to Mike. Mike catches it, and he's like, "Hey, go along, kid," and throws it and pelts Grandma in the head with it.
And, and then Grandma and Scott look at him like, okay, we need to get away from this guy.
And he's like, "Oh, sorry," and she's like, "Oh, okay, yeah, that's funny, I guess," and waves.
It's like, we're gonna move to Mount Vernon. Forget this place.
Right. And then Al and Steve get on the plane. Mike and Steve have a touching goodbye moment.
Yep.
They get on the plane. Mike closes up the door, gets caught in the plane door. Plane takes off. Roll credits.
Yep. Mike pulled Tom Cruise, and that's the other stunt he didn't do, hanging off a plane.
Good.
We got the two stunts: the water rope swing bit, jump twist, and then the hanging off a plane.
Yep. So, do you want to give your final thoughts on this movie?
Yeah, I've given a lot of them throughout the movie. Um,
I think we started with final thoughts.
we did start with some thoughts. Yeah, not a great overall movie. Probably won't watch it again.
No.
And I definitely, yeah, probably wouldn't watch it again. Very disjointed. It didn't know what it was wanting to be, and the fact that the script was written in a weekend shows. I've got nothing else to say about it.
Yeah. I yeah, okay, for some I guess for my final thoughts, I held on to this movie far too long.
Yeah,
I think as I liked it when I was way younger
yeah.
because I was very immature for a very long time.
I mean, you would have been 5 or 6 when it came out, or 10 when it came out.
I mean, more of like my early 20s.
Oh, okay.
I think where I'd seen it the most was in my early 20s, early to mid. I was very immature. I didn't really grow up until I hit my early 30s. I think part of the reason I held on to it was the fact of I kind of was the screw up younger brother, and you were the older brother that kind of always did well and loved me regardless. Always had my back regardless of what I was doing.
Okay, I can see those comparisons.
That's kind of that might be why I kind of held on to that of the movie because of that heart and that relation there.
Yeah.
But like I had mentioned earlier, I am now very much a man of faith. I am a leader at the youth group. I'm
Like a rec center.
don't compare me to this movie.
Sorry.
No, but I've grown in a direction in my life where this kind of movie with the crude comedy, just it doesn't really have much of a place in my life anymore. And so I wanted to do this movie based on my memory of it as a person I used to be, and this last watch of it really kind of drove the point home of like I'm not that anymore.
Yeah.
And so I just yeah, I'll never watch it again. Absolutely not.
Yeah.
It there's no redeeming quality of it or anything. I think it's just it should just be a movie that I saw in the past and yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I won't actively watch it again. If I'm flipping through the channels on the cable and it's on and there's the bat scene or something or it's rolling down the hill, I'll stop for a second. But
Yeah, uh,
not, but it's not something I'll seek out.
definitely. Yeah. Yeah, what a letdown of a last movie for season 1. I genuinely feel it I genuinely do not like that this movie was my last pick for season 1 and I went out on that note.
Well, we still got one more movie for season one.
And why don't you tell us what it is?
So I had thought about this movie for a while. It was one I was gonna do early on. Decided not to. Was thinking of maybe to start season two with it, but I think it's a good cap to season one. It's a movie I grew up loving. And I even directed a play of it in high school. And we are doing The Princess Bride to end out season one.
I knew it. I knew it. I knew it was going to be The Princess Bride.
Yeah.
Yes, I
Um,
did.
I haven't watched it in a few years. It's been a while.
Oh, and the fact that you waited till the end of season 1 to pick this movie is inconceivable.
I don't think that word means what you think it means.
I don't think so either.
Um, but yeah, no, I've when I don't know, I don't have a follow up.
Yeah, actually, Rachel has been mentioning for the last, gosh, I think since about episode like 15 or 16, how surprised she's been that you haven't done The Princess Bride yet.
Once we got that far in, I'm like, you know what, that'll be my end. I had that one kind of earmarked as my last movie for a while.
Yeah. Well, and like I picked Black Sheep as my season ender because of the way I hyped up the comparison between Tommy Boy and it during the
And
Tommy Boy episode.
it makes perfect sense that we would have circled back and closed that Chris Farley loop.
Yeah, I just have to be so bad.
Um, yes.
Well, and
Don't, don't,
it was more the fact of like it was a year after Tommy Boy. It was still Chris Farley and David Spade. It was still kind of road trippy.
yeah.
I mean, not really road trippy, but it was like, yeah, it just a lot of I thought there was a lot more similarities in this one. It just,
I mean, it ended with a hostage take.
yeah, then both of them did.
Yeah. They both
So,
had police chases.
yeah, yeah. I don't know. I just, yeah. Sorry, but
It,
no, I'm looking forward to ending out on a positive note with the Princess Bride.
yeah,
I can't
that
wait.
should be a lot of fun.
It will be.
I've already got some fun facts lined up.
Looking forward to it. But I think that's going to wrap up Black Sheep.
Yeah, it is.
I'm sorry to those of you who watched Black Sheep. I
You
do
know,
not recommend.
that being said, I would watch this over McHale's Navy again, though.
I'm gonna edit that out too.
You don't want me to take my final shot at McHale's Navy?
No, Chaos Navy is a fine film. It's a nice little family film.
Is it?
Well, thank you for those who stuck out through Black Sheep. Uh, if you'd like to reach out to us,
Please
actually
do.
about this movie, please don't. If you'd like to reach out to us, you can do so. WatchItBroPodcast@gmail.com. You can find us on Twitter at WatchItBroPod. Like, rate, review, subscribe. I'm told that helps. We're also on Facebook and Instagram. Our intro and outro music is provided by Nihilore. That intro being Grace, that outro being Haven. And as always, thank you for watching.